Ladies and gents, I am the one and only DJ Storms. Welcome back to the channel here on YouTube.com. It is, of course, Monday, June 21st, 2021. I hope that all the fathers out there had a very, very, very nice Father's Day. I hope that everyone had a nice, safe weekend, and I do appreciate everyone understanding why there was no LFU this past Saturday. I had family obligations that I need to take care of, but they were squared away. Everything was taken care of. I am back in the game. I will be back in the game this Saturday, of course, at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I would also like to send out a special thank you to Mr. Earl Cole, who appeared on the rundown for WWE Hell in a Cell 2021, which took place on Friday afternoon. Big special thank you to him. I greatly appreciate him. He is one of the best supporters that the DJ Storms brand truthfully has. I'd also like to send out one more thank you and a congratulations to Joseph Conlon, who recently just graduated high school. He is a fantastic individual. Him and I have been friends for the last 2 years now, and he has finally graduated high school. He will be moving on to Full Sail University, and he will be going to college there. So hopefully I'll see him at some NXT television shows on the USA Network on Tuesday nights. So special shout out to him, and a congratulations and a thank you for being a great supporter of the channel. Hell in a Cell. This is, of course, the rewind for Hell in a Cell 2021, if you weren't already aware. I would like to start off by really addressing something that's been fairly obvious for a good while now. A lot of people call me Mr. Controversy, saying how all the stuff that I say is just to get people talking, blah, blah, blah. People saying that, oh, I say things just for the sake of it, just to generate buzz. A lot of the things that I say, matter of fact, everything that I say, it's not really that controversial. It's just the truth. It's just facts. Problem is that people don't like the truth. People don't like facts, which is why I'm so vehemently hated. But what I'm about to say next, some people may agree, some people may not, but I'm really not wrong in saying this. WWE undoubtedly has the best roster that they've ever had in the history of their company, and they may quite possibly have the best roster that they've ever had in the wrestling industry. And I'm even going to include them slightly over AEW, because it's easy to pinpoint AEW's roster and say that, wow, AEW has a great roster, because their talent is booked correctly. Key words, booked correctly. I want you guys to take a look at the talent on this show. Bianca Belair, Bayley, Seth Rollins, Cesaro, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, Rhea Ripley. All of these individuals are excellent performers. You put them in a ring and give them the proper amount of time, and they're going to deliver an excellent match. But the problem is that you wouldn't know that WWE has such a great roster, and you wouldn't know that they're such great performers because of the way that they're portrayed on television week in and week out. WWE has the best roster that they've ever had in the history of their company. Quite possibly, they may have the best roster in the entire wrestling industry right now. And all they do is book and produce their talent in a way that makes them look bad. If you took an individual that had no idea about the horrendous booking that WWE has put forth on television week in and week out, they would look at this show on paper with all the names that I just named, and they would say, wow, this must have been a great show. It was decent, but this show should have been better than it was. with the talent that I just named. Now, I'm not going to say that this was a dog shit show. I'm not going to say that this was a terrible show. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't overwhelmingly good. I don't think anyone realizes that the creative booking, the creative writing, the production of the talent, that is a key factor in bringing a show up from decent to very good, even great. The talent on this show, outside of Roman Reigns, who wasn't on the show, realistically, the talent in the WWE period on Raw and SmackDown, outside of Roman Reigns, have been booked to look bad. Take a look at Bianca Belair and Bayley, two of the best women's wrestlers on the planet. But yet, this entire program had absolutely no storyline to it up until the last 4 weeks of the feud. They've been feuding for 2 months, and the central story on this match and this feud has been Bayley's laugh, Bayley's cackling. Bayley's been made into a complete nerd. Bianca Belair has been made into a generic, boring, ordinary babyface. You take a look at Seth Rollins and Cesaro and this program. This program has been going on since February, and this program's had absolutely no steam behind it. This pay-per-view was built in this match, or the pay-per-view had this match on it, and the match was pretty much built around the same generic concept that Seth Rollins' feuds have been built around for the last year and a half. Cesaro and Seth Rollins had absolutely no heat behind it. This was nothing more than a watered-down version of the Kevin Owens feud that Seth Rollins had going into WrestleMania 36 last year, when the pandemic just came out of nowhere. Take a look at Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. They have been tossed into the mix with Big E and Apollo Crews, and all they've done for the last 2 months was get thrown in various match types that either had Big E and Apollo Crews attached to it, or they didn't, or they faced each other. Kevin Owens, they have not even half-assed, they haven't even 1/8 Kevin Owens booking, if you know what I'm talking about. They have not booked Kevin Owens in any way, shape, or form in which the universe is going to care about him ever since his feud with Roman ended back in January. Sami Zayn, I'm 1,000% sure that Sami Zayn's victory last night was his first singles win in 2021. He's lost about 97-98% of his matches in the last 6 months. Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley. What more can I say? They are two powerhouses, two heavy hitters, two people who you do not want to catch in an alleyway. Two people who could legitimately beat the shit out of each other, and everyone will find enjoyment in it. But the way that they have been booked, the way that they've been portrayed, and the way that this feud has panned out, just rematch after rematch after rematch, and the constant amount of segments that these two were involved in, the same exact segment that they had week in and week out on Raw. You take a look at this show on paper without the booking, and you would think that this show would have been a fantastic show. WWE, obviously, they become lazy, and they refuse to give anyone a reason to care about the matches that they put out, not just on their weekly shows, but on their pay-per-views as well. All because either we're WWE, so you're going to watch anyway, or you're just going to watch anyway, not because we're WWE, but because that we have the best in-ring talent in the world, and they're going to put on a great match, no matter how bad the storyline has been, or the fact that they're getting paid all this money, so they feel the need that, oh, we don't need to put any effort into these shows. We don't need to put any effort into Raw, SmackDown, or these pay-per-views because we're sitting on all this cash from Peacock, USA, Fox. All these different companies pretty much shoveling money into Vince McMahon's throat to eat for breakfast. WWE cannot keep on doing this. They can't. They can't keep on putting out these shows that absolutely have no build to it. No good build, at least. And then just expect people to care no matter how good the in-ring action was. And we got some pretty damn good in-ring action on last night's show. We got some pretty good in-ring action on last night's show, but this shit can't go on. WWE can't keep on relying on the in-ring talent of these wrestlers just because, oh, they're the best wrestlers in the world, so apparently that's going to make the fans care. That's not going to make the fans care. You have made all of these individuals on your show, week in and week out, minus Roman Reigns, look bad. I really don't need to say much more. I could just end the review right there. But of course, everything that I just said for the last 11 minutes is just going to fall on deaf ears. Everything's going to fall on deaf ears. I'm pretty much talking to a wall because WWE doesn't give a shit. And then there's people that are getting all excited, or getting all giddy that WWE is going to improve their programming, quote unquote, so to speak. Yeah, sure. What have I told you? What have I told you since, I don't know, forever with this company? Since the day that I came into this community and I started this brand 4 years ago. I have started this brand in 2017. Next month will be my 4-year anniversary here on YouTube. What have I always said with this company? Seeing is believing. Until you see the programming truthfully improve, then you cannot get all excited. You have no right to get all giddy, all excited, all hyped up that WWE is apparently going to get better. You have no right to. You don't. You can be excited and all that, but if you're legitimately putting your faith in this company after everything that they've done, wasn't it just 2.5 years ago that Vince, Shane, Stephanie, and Triple H came out on Raw and said, we're going to give you what you want? I'm still waiting for that. They haven't given us what we wanted. I want champions to not lose clean on television. I would like actual interesting storylines. That's not the same old formulaic garbage that transcends into tag team matches, or a champion and a challenger being teamed up, or people looking on the ramp when someone's theme music hits like an idiot. I would like talent to be pushed just right, not underutilized and not shoved down someone's throats. I would like talent to be pushed just the right amount, to a point where people can actually stomach them and they're not overbearing, or they're not underutilized. That's what I want. That's what many of the fans want. Has WWE given that to us? No. So why should you trust WWE in any way, shape, or form just because they said, supposedly in a exclusive with Andrew Zarian, and he got the inside scoop that WWE's planning to improve their programming? No, they're not. And if they are, improving the programming means bringing back superstars like Brock Lesnar, John Cena, Edge, Goldberg. People that are already made, taking up spots from talent that really should be getting the spotlight, like Cruz and Cesaro and Drew McIntyre and Belair and Rhea and Ali and Ricochet, Mansoor, the Viking Raiders. Those are the people that should be getting the opportunities. Those are the people that should be getting the spotlight. Not Cena, not Goldberg, not Lesnar, not Edge, not Dwayne. This show, like I said, should have been a lot better than it was. It wasn't dog shit. It wasn't completely terrible. But in no way, shape, or form are people going to look back on this and think that this was an overwhelmingly great show. It wasn't great by any means. We did get some great matches, but 2 or 3 great matches on a 6-match show doesn't make a great show. It makes for a semi-decent show. But ultimately, Hell in a Cell will be looked at on the same level as WrestleMania Backlash. Had the same flow, had the same match order, so to speak, and it's a show that could have ultimately been better than it was had it been for great booking, which WWE clearly does not have. Same thing with WrestleMania Backlash. Could have been great. Could have been great. Could have been a lot better than it was. The show wasn't necessarily a dog shit show, but WWE constantly, and I mean constantly, makes their superstars look bad with their booking, and they can't keep on doing this. And once again, the words that I say here mean absolutely nothing, as it will all fall on deaf ears. So I'm pretty much wasting my time, but that's the passion that I have for not just this company, but for professional wrestling in general. This is, of course, the official rewind for WWE Hell in a Cell 2021. If you guys have not already done so, before we get into the specifics and the matches, please make sure you follow me on Twitter at HistoryMakerDJS. Follow me on Instagram as well at TheDJStorms. Add me on Facebook, please. For collaborations and business inquiries, please send me an email. My email is, of course, StormsTakeOver@gmail.com. Like the official DJ Storms business page, and I may just send you an invite to join the official DJ Storms Posse group on Facebook. That is. All of those links are in the description. We are 17 minutes into the video. Please make sure you hit that thumbs up. Share the I almost said share the platform. Well, you could share the video on all platforms of social media, whether it be Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, Facebook, Pinterest, any social media platform that you got. Please make sure you share this video out so we can get as many people in here as possible. The likes have been a little lackluster. They've been a little lackluster. I'm not sure why. I guess it's just because I'm reviewing WWE programming and not a lot of people care for the WWE, which I don't really blame you. But then again, I do enjoy certain talent on WWE, and I like to cover their shows because I would like to hope that they would get better. But please, if you guys are in the chat, how many people are in the chat, please make sure you hit the like button if you haven't already done so. Share it out on all platforms of social media. Get as many people in here as possible. Your mothers, your fathers, your brothers, your sisters, sons, your daughters, aunts, uncles, grandparents, dogs, cats, and your guinea pigs. You already know the drill with the guinea pigs. I don't really need to go on and on about that because I'm pretty sure a lot of you just want to hear me talk about Hell in a Cell, whether it be praise or rant. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Hit the notifications bell with a huge coup de grace. That way you will know whenever I pop up on YouTube. Because, man, whenever I pop up on YouTube, man, it's the best time to be on YouTube. Only time you're going to get to see this glorious side, burn, shin, strap combination. This beautiful mustache right here. Give me 1 second. You already know what's coming next. Mr. Earl Cole calls it the magic comb. You already know the drill. Everybody wants a piece of the Storms Meister. Anyway, enough chit-chat. Let's get straight into the matches here. We had 7 matches on the show. The pre-show match was literally thrown together a couple hours before the show. Typical WWE. They do this shit with Monday Night Raw every single week. Matter of fact, Monday Night Raw isn't even finalized yet. And we are just like a little bit over 5 hours away from the show. So that just goes to show you where WWE's mindset's at. Pre-show match was Natalya versus Mandy Rose. Now, I don't want to say that this was a dog shit match, because it wasn't. Both of these women are decent wrestlers, and when they're given an opportunity, they can put on a fairly decent match. But my God. If you're going to tell me, if anyone is going to try and come to me and say, oh yeah, I cared about this match, you're lying. You're lying right to my face. Please don't even bother. Nobody cared about this match, and if someone says they do, they are absolutely lying right through their yellow teeth. Just pointing it out there. There's absolutely no way that anyone can care about these two women. Mandy Rose was one of the best acts in all of WWE. Some people may even say that feud with Sonya Deville was actually better than the Sasha Banks-Bayley feud because they kind of rushed through that rivalry towards the end of 2020. Mandy Rose, she's a very good pro wrestler when given the opportunity, but this tag team with Dana Brooke, it is absolutely horrible. Same goes with Natalya. Natalya's decent, but she has just about as much charisma as a lamp. The women's tag team titles are dead. These two tag teams have absolutely no intrigue and no heat behind them, and everything that surrounds the women's tag team titles ultimately becomes utter trash. The match was not horrible. I'm not going to sit here and say the match was terrible, but nobody gives a shit about these two teams. No one gives a shit about the women's tag team titles, and no one gives a shit about the women's division. The women's division is at its worst. It's at its absolute worst. So both women traded technical holds early on. Rose took over. Natalya came back with a basement dropkick for a 2. Rose with a very nice missile dropkick for a 2. Natalya with a discus lariat for a 2. Bicycle knee by Rose. That only got a 2 count. We had some back and forth roll-ups by the two women. Natalya finally locked in the sharpshooter. And Mandy Rose tapped out almost immediately. So you would think that means Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke aren't getting a women's tag team title match anytime soon. But no, there's no one in the division. There's all but 3 tag teams in the women's tag team division. And one of them, as a matter of fact, all of them aren't tag teams, and all of them shouldn't even be tag teams. Tamina and Dana Brooke should have been fired on Black Wednesday, and again, I don't really ask for anyone to be fired, but they have absolutely no value whatsoever. They have no value whatsoever. I don't understand how anyone sees any value in them. And the only reason why Tamina has a job is because of her last name. The only reason why Dana Brooke has a job is because of her looks. Sorry, the truth is the truth. Truth's the truth. Natalya wins. Not a dog shit match. Both women are not bad pro wrestlers, but no one gave a shit. No one gave a shit. It was a complete waste of time. Something that was not a complete waste of time was the way that the main show started. Bianca Belair versus Bayley. This was a Hell in a Cell match for the SmackDown Women's Championship. This was great. And I mean great. Now, the feud has been terrible. The feud's been booked absolutely horrible. Bayley has been made into a laughing nerd. Matter of fact, I'm wondering what happened to the Bayley that was feuding with Sasha Banks, that was attacking Sasha Banks while Sasha was in a neck brace. And then the smart-ass bitch Bayley was going, enjoy your predictable 13-day title reign while you can, after Sasha Banks beat her inside Hell in a Cell. That's the Bayley I want. You can't tell me that Bayley was not better than this Bayley. This Bayley is a complete shell of what the Bayley that feuded with Sasha Banks was. Bayley has been made into a nerd. A complete nerd. In every sense of the word, ever since she lost the title to Sasha Banks. There's been nothing that Bayley... And I love Bayley, and she's really nailed this heel gimmick down, but her laugh being the central point of this feud, it's just completely mind-boggling to me that you don't make this feud about the SmackDown Women's Championship instead of Bayley's laugh. Bianca Belair, she's in the same category. Completely booked like a loser. And I don't mean a literal loser. I mean an ordinary, weak vulnerable loser that you see on the playground in grammar school. I don't really know what else to say in that regard. Bianca Belair should have been going after Bayley like, oh, Bayley, you want the SmackDown Women's title? You want to laugh in my face? You want to say I don't deserve to be SmackDown Women's Champion? You know, I did something that you couldn't do. I beat Sasha Banks for the SmackDown Live Women's Championship. You lost to Sasha twice within the span of 2 weeks. So, does that make me better than you, bitch? That's what she should have said. That's what she should have said. Not, well, Bayley wants to laugh in my face after all of these bullies wanna come up in my face and they wanna try and run me down, try and cut me down to size because of their own insecurities. Are you serious? Who's writing this? It was incredibly frustrating and downright cringeworthy to listen to Bianca Belair's promos. This feud has been absolutely terrible, but let me tell you something. These two women worked their asses off, and they did everything in their power to show you why they deserved to be put inside Hell in a Cell, even though the feud did not call for it, and it didn't need it. These two women brought it. And I mean brought it. This was absolutely one of the best matches of the night. And I'd go so far as to even say that this was their best match together, the best match of Bianca's title reign thus far, and Bianca Belair's best match of her entire WWE career thus far. I'm even putting this match over the Sasha Banks match at WrestleMania. This match was great. Bayley came out with the Cactus Jack-like attire. Very nice homage there to Mick Foley. Bianca Belair came out to what looked to be Alundra Blaze attire. Looked very, very good. So both women looked very, very good. Belair was in control early before Bayley took over by sending Belair into the post. Bayley targeted the left arm of Bianca. Bayley then brought in the steps. Belair was then on the receiving end of some punishment from Bayley, and Belair actually got her hair tied on the rope, and this was actually a key focal point by Bayley throughout this match. Bayley tied Belair's hair on the ropes. Belair then, using her witty nature, tripped up Bayley by her hair and sent Bayley face first into the bottom portion of the steel steps that Bayley brought in. Bayley then bit Bianca Belair's arm, and this was actually one of my favorite parts of the show. Pat McAfee, like the witty genius that he is, he just yelled into the microphone as Bayley bit Bianca, and then Bianca was looking at her arm, and Pat McAfee goes, "Did she penetrate skin?" Pat McAfee, he is very, very, very funny on commentary. You know for a fact that Pat McAfee has been watching old tapes of Bobby the Brain Heenan and Jesse Ventura and old Jerry the King Lawler tapes, and he's trying to do everything in his power to make his commentary witty and funny and memorable. He's no Mauro Ranallo, but let me tell you something. If Mauro and Pat McAfee were calling a match, I can only imagine the back and forth between the two. Pat McAfee, very, very, very entertaining. So, we had Belair being hit with the kendo stick. And then Bayley flipped Belair into the cell. Bayley then taped 2 kendo sticks together prior to this match, and she set them up in between the cell and the ring. Belair then took advantage, and she hit a spine buster to Bayley through the kendo sticks on the floor. That looked brutal. Bayley then was rolled back into the ring. Bayley kicked out. Bayley then went back to Belair's hair, and she tied Belair's hair into a chair. Bayley then laughed in Belair's face. Belair then used the chair to block Bayley's running knee, and then hit a chop block to Bayley. Belair then decided to one-up Bayley. She's like, oh, okay, you want to use my hair? Then I'm going to use my hair to my advantage. She then tied Bayley's arm to her hair. So her hair was wrapped around Bayley's arm, and she was dragging Bayley on the floor by her hair into the cell. I can appreciate the craftiness. Very, very crafty by both Belair and Bayley, considering we've seen a lot of Hell in a Cell matches over the course of the last 3 decades, to a point where it's almost become very, very stereotypical. A lot of the things that the competitors inside Hell in a Cell do, we haven't really seen them before, or we have seen them before, but Belair and Bayley, I gotta give them credit for the craftiness. So, Bayley then brought in a ladder. She then sandwiched Belair in between the ladder. She hit the rose plant with the ladder, crunching Bianca, but her knee gave out because Bianca was targeting the knee. Belair then kicked out because Bayley took too much time. Belair then put the ladder on Bayley. Bayley moved out of the way of a frog splash, but she caught a senton by Belair onto the ladder. Belair then opened up the ladder while the ladder was on the floor. So it wasn't open that way, it was open this way. And Belair with a brutal finish. KOD onto the ladder, and Bianca Belair retains the SmackDown Women's Championship in a great Hell in a Cell match. I would have to say the second best match of the show. A great Hell in a Cell match between the two. Both women worked very, very hard. Bayley will ultimately go down as one of the greatest women's wrestlers of all time. Bianca Belair, let me tell you something. Her booking and the promos that she's been cutting have been shit. But man, is she a damn good wrestler. And she is doing everything. I know for a fact she knows. You can tell by her body language. You can tell in her face. She knows that WWE is absolutely fucking her up with the shit promos that she's delivering. But I'm telling you right now. She knows that WWE is doing her bad. But she is doing everything in her power to make her matches memorable enough for people to look at her title reign and say, man, she's had some damn good matches. So I commend Bianca Belair for that. This was a great Hell in a Cell match with an awesome finish. KOD onto an opened ladder. Bianca Belair retains the title clean, as she should, and Bianca Belair continues her title reign. We are looking at a possible rematch with Sasha at SummerSlam. Seth Rollins versus Cesaro was the next match. This one was in the same boat as Belair and Bayley. Feud was very, very, very lackluster. Nothing special whatsoever. But these two worked their asses off here. These two did an excellent job. And this was an excellent match. This was absolutely the best non-Hell in a Cell match of the show. And out of the 3 matches that they've had, this was probably their best match together. Now, some people may prefer their WrestleMania match because it actually had live fans, but this match went a little bit longer, and I feel as though it told a better story. So Rollins actually attacked Cesaro during his entrance. Both men went at it before the ref even rang the bell. The ref rang the bell. Cesaro, he went right after Rollins. Cesaro was in control early. Cesaro with the vicious uppercuts before Rollins took over with an STO into the turnbuckle. Rollins then hit a DDT. Rollins then tried to wear down Cesaro before Cesaro came back with a deadlift suplex. Rollins came back with a running knee off the apron to Cesaro, and then a springboard knee into the ring for a 2. Cesaro then came back with a slam, and then he ripped the glove off of Seth Rollins and shoved it in his mouth, a la Ted DiBiase shoving a $100 bill in a superstar's mouth. He then rolled up the glove into a ball and punted the glove into the virtual crowd, which is actually pretty funny. Cesaro then with a power slam for a 2. Rollins then hit an enziguri. Cesaro came back with a big discus lariat. Rollins with a big forearm right to the back of the neck. That got a 2 count. Rollins was then talking trash to Cesaro. Cesaro saying, "You haven't earned a damn thing." Then we had a Fujiwara armbar by Rollins. Rollins transitioned into a Falcon Arrow for a 2. Black Magic connecting. That got a 2 count. Cesaro with a lariat. He then hit the swing. Round and round we go. Sharpshooter locked in. Cesaro then transitioned into a crossface. Another sharpshooter again. Cesaro then stomped on Rollins' arm, similar to what Isaiah Swerve Scott does in NXT. How he just holds the opponent's arm up and then just quickly stomps it back into the mat, kind of dislocating their arm and their shoulder out of socket. But Rollins was able to counter and roll up Cesaro for the quick 1, 2, 3. And Rollins gets the win. This was an excellent, excellent match. The best non-Hell in a Cell match of the night. And both of these men worked their asses off in this match. They really, really, really brought it. Even though the feud was not anything special at all. And the one thing that really kind of caught my eye was the fact that Cesaro, even with the attack from Rollins, Cesaro was really made to look strong, kicking out everything that Rollins was giving to him. And then he locked Rollins in various different submission holds. And then, just when he thought he had Rollins, Rollins quickly caught Cesaro off guard and rolled him up for the win. So in a way, they sort of protected Cesaro. I want to say. I really want to say they protected Cesaro, because it's easy just to have Rollins just hit a curb stomp and then he wins clean 1, 2, 3. Cesaro couldn't kick out. Rollins won with a quick roll-up, and Cesaro was clearly pissed off. He was clearly pissed off that he made one little mistake, and that's kind of the veteran instinct of Seth Rollins. So in a sense, they protected Cesaro. I knew that Seth Rollins was going to win. There was no way Cesaro was going to beat Seth Rollins 3 times. It looks like this feud is over. I do not see this feud happening again. I see both of these individuals in Money in the Bank. I don't know what happens with Cesaro. I don't know if he wins Money in the Bank. I don't know if he goes on to fight Apollo Crews for the Intercontinental title. That's what I would do. Crews and Cesaro Intercontinental title, and you give Cesaro the Intercontinental title. Now, I don't really want to say that Cesaro has seen his day and he's done just because he lost to Rollins. But they have really ruined Cesaro and the momentum that he had. And I say that because I'm thinking over the course of the next year, Roman Reigns is not losing that title. And right now, you got nobody. You got nobody. Cena's not beating him. Rollins ain't beating him. Big E ain't beating him. Lesnar ain't beating him. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson ain't beating him. You've built up no one in the same light as Roman Reigns. You had the opportunity to do that with Cesaro. You should have built up, so you should have taken Cesaro, and you should have built him up over the course of 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 months, leading up into WrestleMania of next year. And then he should have beaten Roman Reigns for the Universal title. You should have kept Cesaro unpinned and unsubmitted just like Roman Reigns. And you had the opportunity to put that title on Cesaro if you would have continued to build him up over the course of X amount of months leading up until WrestleMania next year, or maybe even SummerSlam of this year. I would have preferred WrestleMania of next year. You could have had him win the Rumble. But right now, there's nobody. There's absolutely no one that you have that's going to be believable in beating Roman Reigns. You had the opportunity to do that with Cesaro, and you just wasted him away within 4 months, and you just gave him a Universal title match just to get Roman Reigns through Backlash. So, where exactly does Cesaro look good here? And where does he get his just due? Unless he wins Money in the Bank, which I don't see happening. Truth be told, I don't know who the fuck's going to win Money in the Bank for the women and for the men. I have an idea for the women. I have an idea of who's going to win Money in the Bank for the women. I don't like it, but we'll talk about that later on. But this match was excellent. I knew Rollins was winning. There was no way Cesaro was going to beat Rollins 3 times. Here's what I will say, though. I don't know where Rollins goes, and quite frankly, I don't really care. Because Rollins, there's really nothing interesting about Seth Rollins right now. There's nothing interesting about Seth Rollins. He's a decent heel. He's an excellent performer, but there's no heat surrounding the guy. I'm sorry. What I will say about Cesaro is, if we don't see Cesaro either win Money in the Bank or win the title from Cruz at WrestleMania, SummerSlam, excuse me, at SummerSlam, they would have absolutely botched Cesaro. You had the opportunity to build Cesaro up to face Roman at next year's WrestleMania. You didn't do that. So now, you need to give Cesaro some sort of a consolation prize. And I'm guessing that's either going to be the Money in the Bank briefcase, where he could potentially cash in on Roman. Does he win? I don't know. Or you give him the Intercontinental title. I would give him the Intercontinental title. But this was an excellent match. Rollins gets his win, as I expected. Alexa Bliss versus Shayna Baszler. This was terrible. And I mean terrible. Not as bad as Damian Priest versus The Miz from last pay-per-view. That will ultimately go down as the worst match of the year. But this was not good at all. This was really, really, really not good. And it really just gets under my skin. And I'm really trying not to lose my cool here, but it just gets under my skin. I don't know who the fuck Shayna Baszler pissed off, but she has been taken from NXT, and within 2 months, she was absolutely destroyed. Everything about Shayna Baszler was fucking ruined. Everything. Everything. Shayna Baszler may very well be, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. It will undoubtedly go down. Shayna Baszler will undoubtedly go down as the most mistreated WWE women's performer ever. I mean it. I'm really not joking. I don't think I've ever seen anyone get called up and just get embarrassed and humiliated week after week after week after week. Losses to some of the worst performers in WWE right now, Dana Brooke and Lana, when Lana was employed, Charlotte Flair, Reginald. Need I say more? Need I say more? And now, she's over here selling for one of the worst wrestlers, and I don't care what the hell anyone says, Alexa Bliss is one of the worst wrestlers in the company right now. May very well be in the entire industry. Alexa Bliss is not a good wrestler. They had something with the character, and they didn't do anything correctly with the character. Alexa Bliss serves better as a manager, as a valet. Alexa Bliss serves better as a woman who should stay out of the ring, because she has only had 3 opponents that were able to bring her to a decent match. Becky Lynch, Bayley, and Sasha. The match she had with Charlotte was dog shit. Goes to show you how far down Charlotte is compared to the other 3 horsewomen. The other 3 horsewomen are here. Charlotte is the weakest of the 4 horsewomen. Just pointing it out there. And Alexa Bliss is terrible. The only reason why she has the accomplishments that she has is because she looks like a Victoria's Secret model, and WWE loves the women that look like Victoria's Secret supermodels. I don't really need to say much else. I'll say it again. I'm telling you, if there's one individual, there's just one individual that I wish would just fucking walk. There's one individual that I wish would just say, fuck this company, and pull a CM Punk, and pull a Pac, and just walk. It's Shayna Baszler. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the day in which she just walks. I really don't know what else. There's nothing more to say. There really is nothing more to say. I'm just getting sick and tired of this, and it is absolutely fucking sad to see. It is absolutely fucking sad to see. It's just sad to see someone like Shayna Baszler, one of the toughest women in the entire company, sell for a dog shit performer like Alexa Bliss. This match was terrible. I'd even go so far as to say that Natalya and Mandy Rose had a better match on the pre-show than Alexa Bliss and Shayna Baszler. Pointing it out there. Shayna came out with Reginald and Nia Jax, which again, I'm going to ask the question, why is Shayna Baszler still walking around with Reginald and Nia Jax? I thought that ever since they lost the tag team titles, they really don't have a purpose anymore. Or are you just doing that to punish Shayna Baszler even more? And you're just doing it to keep Shayna Baszler out of the Raw Women's title picture, which we all know she should be in, and we all know she should be winning Money in the Bank for the women. We all know she should be beating Rhea Ripley, but of course that's not going to happen now, is it? Of course not. So Baszler still came out with Reginald and Nia Flapjacks. Bliss using her hypnosis powers. So first it was tampering with the pyrotechnics. Then it was using Lily to flicker the lights and cause scaffolding and all this shit to happen backstage with Shayna. Then it's Lily pulling a mirror trick where she's in the mirror, but she's not in real time. Now it's hypnosis. No more blood dripping from her mouth. Now it's hypnosis. Now she's a hypnotic individual. Of course, that's what happens with Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard whenever Alexa Bliss walks into the room. They're hypnotized by Alexa Bliss because all they think about is how Alexa Bliss looks like a Victoria's Secret model and more. I could go more in depth, but I'll refrain from that because I know you guys want to hear me talk about this shit more and rip it to shreds. So, this was fucking terrible. Reginald tried to cause a distraction. Baszler with a step-up knee to Bliss in the corner. Gut-wrench slam for a 2. Bliss laughed at all the offense Baszler gave. Think about this. Bliss laughing and no-selling offense from Shayna Baszler. I mean, need I say more? Oh, and it was even worse with what happened with Charlotte and Rhea Ripley. Bliss then hypnotized Nia Jax. She slapped Reginald. They screamed at each other. Bliss with a modified Sister Abigail DDT to Baszler. And then she hit Twisted Bliss for the win. This was absolutely fucking terrible. If you needed any more, it's almost like they just keep on adding exclamation point after exclamation point onto Shayna Baszler and how she is just absolutely buried on the main roster. Every single they do the same thing every single time. More and more and more and more and more. All they do is just keep on adding and adding layer upon layer upon layer, adding another reason upon reason upon reason upon reason. I don't really know what to tell you. I mean, if there was any more, how many more nails need to be hammered into Shayna Baszler's coffin? She's done. She's done. She's been done. She was done the moment the ref counted 3 at WrestleMania 36 and she lost to Becky Lynch. She was done. Like dinner. She was done like the turkey burger dinner I had last night before the show. What happens next? I don't know. I don't give a shit. What happens with Alexa Bliss? Does she win Money in the Bank? I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me if she does. Because she's one of the women that WWE seem to be protecting right now. Outside of Charlotte Flair, she's another woman that could win Money in the Bank, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. What if Alexa Bliss gets a Raw Women's title match against Rhea Ripley at SummerSlam? It could happen. I wouldn't put it past WWE to do that. This was terrible. This was the Damian Priest Miz match of the show. Not as bad as that match, but it was still very, very bad. Alexa Bliss sucks. So does her fan base. Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. Just like I said in the beginning of the show, this show should have been better than it was, but it's just so hard. It really is. It's hard to care about any of these matches, especially Owens and Zayn. I knew that they were going to put on a decent match, and it was a decent match, but out of all the matches that they've had together, this was by far the weakest match that they've ever had. This was the weakest match that they've ever had, and I really don't know what to tell you. When these two men, when Owens and Zayn of all people have a match that should really overexceed everyone's expectations, when they have a match against each other that should realistically be the match of the night, and it only turns out to be decent, that's low even for them. It wasn't a bad match at all. It wasn't a bad match whatsoever, but if you're going to tell me that this was the best that we've ever gotten from these guys, you're absolutely lying. The WrestleMania match was better, and that match actually got less time than this match. So Owens was in control early. Zayn targeted the throat. Obviously, Owens still selling the effects of the Nigerian nail. Owens with a cannonball in the corner for a 2. Owens still selling his throat. Zayn with a tope con hero to Owens. It almost looked like Owens may have popped his shoulder out of place. It's either that or Owens is the greatest seller among sellers. I really couldn't tell whether Owens was just selling or whether he was legitimately hurt. We'll probably find out in the coming days. Zayn took advantage. Owens favored his arm, his left arm that is. Owens came back with a clothesline, senton off the apron, but Zayn got his knees up. Zayn with a blue thunder bomb, but Owens was able to kick out. Owens then got caught with a nasty half-and-half suplex right on the top of his head for a very, very, very close near fall. He then kicked out. Zayn actually got his lip cut open. Owens then with a stunner on the floor. Owens got back into the ring. Zayn just beat the count. Zayn with a running knee to the head of Owens, and then he hit the haluva kick, and he beat Kevin Owens. This was a decent match, but this was easily the weakest match that Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens had ever put on. And that's not even their fault. It's not even their fault because they've just been booked like pretty much. I don't really want to say pieces of trash. I don't want to say they've been booked like pieces of trash, but compared to how they were booked in NXT, and they had about 2 matches in NXT, I believe. And both of those matches superseded any match that they've ever had on the main roster. Just pointing it out there. I don't want to say that they're booked like trash. I don't. But they have not been portrayed well at all this year. I'm just pointing out, they have not been portrayed well at all this year. They really haven't. I'm sorry. Sami Zayn has lost, like I said, 97, 98% of his matches this year alone. This was his first singles win this year and his second overall win in 2021. I've been keeping track. Kevin Owens, he has not felt like a big deal ever since his feud with Reigns ended at the Royal Rumble of 2021. I don't really know what else to say. And Sami Zayn got a win. Great. Good for Sami, he got a win. Is he going anywhere? No. Are they going to push him? No. This was a consolation win. They're just throwing these two guys together because there's nothing else for them to do. They've been thrown together either against each other or in a series of mix-up matches with Apollo Crews and Big E. I don't know where they go. I don't. Maybe Sami gets entered into Money in the Bank. Does he win Money in the Bank? I don't expect him to win Money in the Bank. He's not going to go anywhere. Sami Zayn's been booked like a loser. He's lost and lost and lost and lost and lost. And this conspiracy gimmick is really running its course. I'm sorry. He's great at what he does, but it's really running its course. Decent match, but neither man is going anywhere. I'm sorry. I don't know what happens with Owens. I don't know what happens with Zayn. If anything, I would build up Owens to take the Intercontinental title off Cesaro when the time is right. I'd love to see Owens as a champion again. Maybe Owens gets drafted to Raw. And that means that his career is pretty much over, but they're going to need some people on Raw. They're going to need some people on Raw to fight for the WWE title. I see Owens as a top contender for the WWE title on Raw. I don't know if that's absolutely going to happen, but I would not put it past WWE to put Owens in the draft and put him on Monday Night Raw. Decent match, but it was not as good as their WrestleMania match, which was actually quite shocking. I actually was very interested in seeing what they would do to overtop their WrestleMania match, but they did not seem excited. They did not seem like they wanted to be there. They seemed as though they were miserable. I don't know. Decent match, but there was just no heat behind this match, no heat in the feud. Sami Zayn gets a win. They're not pushing him. Sorry to tell you, but this was nothing more than a consolation win that's going to mean absolutely nothing. Why? Because WWE doesn't put a focus on wins and losses. Sami Zayn, he's going nowhere. Sorry. Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair. This was for the Raw Women's Championship. Oh, my God. This match really pissed me off. And I'm going to tell you why. This match pissed me off because Charlotte Flair, I don't know what happened. It's almost like they booked Charlotte Flair to act like she was an overall 100 in a WWE 2K video game. No joke. Charlotte Flair did everything in her power to dominate Rhea Ripley. So much so that she's dominated Rhea Ripley so much that Rhea Ripley actually got herself disqualified. She got herself disqualified. This was absolutely probably the worst booked match. I would go so far as to say that Shayna Baszler and Alexa Bliss was better booked than this match. At least that match was only 7 to 8 minutes and we didn't have to suffer through it, only for it to end in a disqualification. This match was horribly booked, and I mean horribly booked. You have Rhea Ripley, someone who should have gotten her win back from WrestleMania of last year when she was buried by Charlotte. If you were going to have Charlotte just dominate Rhea, only to lose in the end, that would have made Rhea look strong. But instead, no. Instead, you book Charlotte Flair to absolutely dominate, no-sell Rhea's offense to a point where Rhea now needs to disqualify herself by throwing the table head in Charlotte Flair's face. Need I say more? This was horribly booked. And we got a disqualification finish. What does this mean? There's multiple routes that they can go, but I have a feeling that they're going to go with the worst possible scenario. Like I said, no matter who wins this match, the worst is yet to come. It is going to be a long, egregious summer. I'm telling you. So Charlotte threw the title at Rhea before the match even began and punched her. Flair toyed with Rhea early. Flair then sent Rhea into the barricade. Rhea came back with a clothesline and a headbutt and a super kick. Charlotte with a heel hook on the rope. Rhea came back with a missile drop kick for a 2. Rhea with a reverse cloverleaf. Flair with natural selection. Ripley kicked out. Flair tried to use the ropes for elevation, but the ref saw her. Ripley with a German suplex. Flair, no selling, as usual. She is absolutely fucking terrible. And so is her fan base. Fuck Charlotte Flair. Fuck Charlotte Flair. I don't even have the energy to do the over-the-top fuck Charlotte Flair tagline like I usually do, because I just lost all my patience. So, Flair with the worst moonsault ever. She landed on her feet, then hit a standing moonsault for a 2, a la Andrade. Flair then targeted the knee. Flair then went up top. They brawled up to the top. Ripley then with a superplex for a 2. She then hit the riptide, but Flair got her foot on the rope. Ripley then got the steps kicked into her. She got the steps kicked into her leg by Flair. Flair with a spear. She locked in the figure 4, but Rhea Ripley got to the ropes. Both women then fell to the floor, and Ripley flipped the table lid into Charlotte Flair's face, and the ref called for the bell. Ripley and Flair continued to brawl, and Ripley hit the riptide on Flair, and Rhea Ripley stood tall. So, what you essentially told us here is that Charlotte Flair is a narcissistic bitch to a point where she needs to dominate Rhea Ripley, and Rhea Ripley can't get the job done on her own, so she flips the table lid into Charlotte Flair's face because she was getting her ass kicked. Thus, Rhea Ripley looks weak. This horrendous feud is going to continue. Charlotte Flair is going to continue no-selling everyone's offense, making Rhea Ripley look as terrible as possible. And on top of that, who's the heel and who's the babyface here? Who are we supposed to cheer for? And who are we supposed to boo? You pretty much had Rhea Ripley pull a very heelish-like tactic, pretty much making her look like a cowardly heel because Charlotte Flair was kicking her ass the entire match. No selling her offense, pretty much dominating her. Rhea Ripley looked like an overall 30 in a WWE 2K video game. She looked like a jobber out there. So now what happens? Do we get another match at Money in the Bank? I don't know. Do we get another match of Money in the Bank? Does Charlotte Flair beat Rhea Ripley in front of fans? I don't know. Do we see Rhea Ripley versus Nikki Cross at Money in the Bank? And do we see Rhea Ripley... I almost said drop the title to Nikki Cross. Yeah, like that's ever going to happen. Do we see Rhea Ripley beat Nikki Cross while Charlotte Flair wins Money in the Bank for the women? Or does Charlotte Flair not win Money in the Bank, and does she just get a title opportunity against Rhea regardless because she's Charlotte Flair, and we can't have a SummerSlam, we can't have a WrestleMania, we can't have a Royal Rumble, we can't have a Survivor, we can't have any pay-per-view without Charlotte Flair in a title match? Do we see that? I don't know. Or do we see a triple threat match? Do we see Nikki Cross, Charlotte Flair, and Rhea Ripley at Money in the Bank, with Rhea Ripley pinning Nikki Cross because Charlotte Flair doesn't want to take the pinfall loss? Do we see that? I don't know. There's multiple different routes that they can go here, but regardless of which route they go, it's going to end in the same exact route, with Charlotte Flair getting the title some way, shape, or form. If Charlotte Flair does not end up being the one to take the title off of Rhea Ripley, I would be dead shocked. I would be jaw to the floor shocked. There's no way that Charlotte Flair is not taking that title off of Rhea Ripley. If she doesn't, I don't even know anymore. Did Bruce retire? Did Vince retire? Did Charlotte Flair miraculously come to her senses and think, oh man, I'm going to start putting people over? Too little, too late, bitch. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not sure which route they're going to take. I just gave you multiple routes that they could take. Triple threat, Rhea, Nikki. Then they could do Charlotte Flair at SummerSlam. Or they could possibly do Rhea versus Piper Niven at SummerSlam because of Eva Marie. Or we see Rhea versus Alexa Bliss. I wouldn't put it past anyone. To do Rhea Ripley versus Alexa Bliss. And maybe Charlotte Flair cashes in afterwards. I don't know. I honest to God don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how they're going to play this out. All I know is that Charlotte Flair is going to get that title back some way, shape, or form. How she does it, I am not sure. We'll just have to wait and see. But Charlotte Flair is absolutely getting that title back, unfortunately, and I am not, and I mean I am not going to be a fan of it. Main event. Main event was Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley. This was a Hell in a Cell match for the WWE Championship. And similar to Bayley and Bianca, Bayley, Bianca, Sasha, Bianca. They all fucking sound the same. They're all booked the same as well. Similar to Bayley and Bianca, this feud did not belong inside Hell in a Cell. This feud did not need Hell in a Cell. This feud was a complete throwaway inside Hell in a Cell. But damn, they did everything in their power to make you believe that they deserved to be inside Hell in a Cell. And again, like I said, you would not know how good Drew and how good Lashley are with the way that they're booked. You would not know that. This match was excellent. This was 1,000 times better than Drew's Hell in a Cell match with Orton. This was an excellently booked match. Kind of a shitty finish that didn't make Drew look like a strong individual. Not really a finish that made Lashley look good either, but this was still a great match. This was an excellent Hell in a Cell match. Definitely one of the better Hell in a Cell matches. So, we had the brutality starting out very early. Lashley was sent into the steps and the cage. Drew then bashed Lashley with the steps. Drew kept the aggression on Lashley. He set up a table before Lashley took MVP's cane and nailed Drew right in the throat with his cane. Lashley then threw Drew into the cell. Drew came back with a white noise on the bottom of the steel steps. Did not look like it was very pleasing to Mr. Lashley. Drew then brought in another table, and then he started to ping-pong Lashley between himself and the cage. It was a ping-pong fest with Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley. Lashley, he then got clotheslined by Drew. Drew brought out multiple chairs. He set up a chair in the corner. He hit a reverse Alabama slam on the chair for a 2 count to Lashley. Drew then hit Lashley with the chair multiple times. Lashley tried for the Hurt Lock, but Drew hit a spinebuster for a 2. He then hit a beautiful deadlift powerbomb for a 2 count. Drew is a strong motherfucker. So, after that, we had Lashley smashing Drew with the steps into the cage. Drew had the steps like this, and Lashley pushed the steps into Drew, which pushed Drew into the side of the cage. It was back and forth and back and forth. So he was ping-ponging Drew with the steps into the cage. Lashley then took out a kendo stick, and this was actually pretty creative. He gave it to MVP, and they used it to trap Drew in the corner of the cage, similar to what happened with the Usos and the New Day back at Hell in a Cell of 2017. So, Lashley then set up a chair. He then hit a flatliner. He then hit a flatliner on Drew twice on the chair. Drew tried to rally, but Lashley sent Drew into the chair. And then, actually, no. Drew had the chair. And he tried to rally, but Lashley shoved Drew while Drew had the chair, and Drew accidentally chair-shotted the ref. So Drew had the chair like this. Lashley pushed him into the ref. Ref was down. Drew then sent Lashley into the chair that he propped up in the corner, and then hit a future shock DDT, but there was no ref. The ref on the outside was trying to come in so that way he could count the 1, 2, 3. Drew hit the Claymore. The other ref came in, but MVP pulled him out. So MVP was kind of being very, very nonchalant, like, oh, did I do that? So he was very nonchalant. Drew was obviously pissed. He turned around to get out of the cell, and the cell door had already been locked because there was a new referee in the ring. So Lashley was out. MVP was locked into the cell, and now Drew was going to take advantage of this. So Drew then hit a Claymore to MVP. Lashley then tried to lock in the Hurt Lock. Drew then backed up Lashley and sent Lashley and himself through the table that he set up on the floor against the cell. Drew then put Lashley back into the ring. He beat Lashley with the chair over and over. Drew tried for a Claymore. He missed it. He went out to the apron, and Lashley choke-slammed Drew off the apron through the table on the floor that Drew set up. So Drew was out. Drew was out, or so we thought. So then, what we had was Lashley setting up for the spear. Drew was trying to pull himself up by the rope, and Lashley had this menacing look on his face like he was just going to end this for good. Lashley set up Drew for the spear. Drew countered with a backslide for a 2. We had another future shock DDT as Drew set up Lashley for the Claymore once again. But it was not to be, because MVP, who had resurfaced, grabbed Drew's leg. Drew then turned his attention to MVP as Lashley with a roll-up, and he retains the WWE Championship. Not a very pleasing finish, but Lashley retained the WWE Championship regardless. A rather shocking outcome, as I thought Drew McIntyre was going to win the title. Drew has absolutely no more chances. He's got no more chances. Excellent match. Definitely the best match of the night. Definitely the best match that Drew and Lashley have ever put on together. And thank God that this feud is over and Drew is getting absolutely no more chances while Bobby Lashley is still the WWE Champion. So, Drew looked like an idiot. Lashley looked weak. Not really someone that I'm really going to take seriously against Brock Lesnar if he needs constant help to beat Drew McIntyre from MVP, by the way. He beat Strowman and McIntyre clean at Backlash, but he needs MVP's help to beat Drew McIntyre here, inside Hell in a Cell. They really overbooked the shit out of this Hell in a Cell match. It was still an excellent match, though, but they overbooked the shit out of it. Just saying. But this was still an excellent match to cap off an overall decent show. It was not better than WrestleMania Backlash, not better than the Rumble. We got some very good wrestling on the show, but ultimately, the show will ultimately go down as a show that could have been. Now, what happens? What happens with Lashley and what happens with Drew? I can absolutely see Drew McIntyre going into Money in the Bank, because that's the only way that he can get another shot at Lashley, by winning Money in the Bank. So, Drew wins Money in the Bank, and we could possibly see Drew using Money in the Bank as a technicality clause to try and break this agreement with Bobby Lashley. Oh, hey, I won the Money in the Bank briefcase. Do I have to wait until you lose the title? They could do something with that, try and work around whatever bullshit. Nothing's ever consistent in WWE, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see another Drew McIntyre-Lashley match. We could see that, but I don't see Drew winning Money in the Bank. Now, if I was WWE, whenever the Viking Raiders versus AJ and Omos is, whenever that match is, what you do is you absolutely should give the titles to the Viking Raiders. You give the titles to the Viking Raiders, and you do RK Bro versus the Viking Raiders, because that's the better match. And then you can have the Viking Raiders drop the titles to RK Bro. Now, I don't advocate for short title reigns, but it's a hell of a lot better than seeing AJ and Omos in a very predictable, formulaic match with RK Bro, rather than the Viking Raiders, who, if you give the Viking Raiders and RK Bro time, they could definitely put on a great match, worthy of being on the SummerSlam card. So you give the titles to the Viking Raiders, you get AJ away from Omos, and you get AJ Styles back to being AJ Styles. You do Styles and McIntyre at SummerSlam, you give Styles the win. What happens with Lashley now? Now, if I was booking this, I would do Lashley Balor SummerSlam, and I would have Finn Balor win the championship. Then you can do Styles and Finn Balor as the first program for Finn Balor as WWE Champion. You could do Finn versus Styles, and that could be a very, very, very intriguing start to Finn Balor's WWE title reign. But for some reason, I just have this feeling in my gut that they are going to do Lesnar. I have a feeling that they are going to do Lesnar, and we're absolutely seeing Lashley drop that title to Brock Lesnar, unfortunately. I don't see it any other way. And just because you see all these reports that WWE has no plans for Brock Lesnar, that doesn't mean that it's not happening. We've seen reports like this, and then WWE just rips the rug right out from under us and pulls something that completely goes against the reports. Lesnar hasn't been seen. Lesnar wasn't going to show up at Hell in a Cell tonight, because why would you waste Lesnar's return in front of a Thunderdome crowd? Why would you waste Lesnar's return on that? Lesnar was coming back to the WWE, but it wasn't going to be in the Performance Center. The only reason why he was at the Performance Center for the first 3 weeks of the pandemic was because he had to drop the title to Drew McIntyre. He hasn't been seen since then. So what we're going to be getting, ultimately, is we're going to get Lashley and Brock. And Brock's going to win the title. Do you honestly believe, be honest with me, people, do you honestly believe that if WWE does Lashley versus Brock at SummerSlam, do you honestly think that Bobby Lashley is going to be winning? He's not. If he does, I'd be in the same boat as if Rhea Ripley drops the title to somebody other than Charlotte. I would be jaw to the floor shocked. There is no way, based on the history of Brock Lesnar in title matches and what WWE does with Lesnar, there's no way that Brock Lesnar is going to be losing if he's put against Lashley for the WWE title at SummerSlam. Now, before we get to SummerSlam, I can absolutely see Lashley fighting Kofi Kingston at Money in the Bank, because MVP and Kofi, they've been teasing something as of lately. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Lashley versus Kofi. I would not be surprised if we see Lashley versus Kofi, and that's a bridge to get Lashley through Money in the Bank with live fans back, and then ultimately Lashley loses to Lesnar. I wouldn't do that, because we, quite frankly, don't need a SummerSlam with Brock Lesnar. I would do Lashley, Balor. Put the title on Balor. And then build up Balor, going into WrestleMania 38, bring up Adam Cole, groom him to win the Royal Rumble, and then do Cole, Balor, WrestleMania 38 for the WWE title and have Cole beat Balor. Not very hard. Think about it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Hell in a Cell 2021. That wraps up the Rewind. I want to thank each and every single one of you who tuned into this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out all the links in the description. I will be live tweeting for Raw tonight, live tweeting for NXT, live tweeting for Dynamite on Saturday. I got the LFU coming back to you on Saturday, of course. We will not be reviewing, unfortunately, we will not be reviewing Dynamite because I will be going live before the show, but we will talk about the 4 WWE shows for the week, and we are going to dissect the latest news, rumors, and reports in the world of wrestling. Till next time, I'm DJ Storms. This has been The Rewind, and I will catch you guys later on tonight, live tweeting for Monday Night Raw.